come taste my affection. In a taxi filled with air fresh and sweat and polite kisses goodbye. And we will find lost faces in the windows, discarded hearts crushed beneath the gap where the two seats join. Down there where their pockets spill and their silent farts collect, until the bleary driver come night shift's end will thrust down his hand and separate either you from me or me from you. So come on girl, why not slip down here with me below the false laughs and the silence of others? Submerged we'll slip condoms from wallets or graffiti our poetry along their spines. Deep hidden we'll swoon to the old lady's perfume, smirk to the popular draining their batteries dry, and touch to the whispers of the lovers wrestling. Will I ever find you, my love? And that's when we'll kiss, madly kiss, liberated tongues escaping starving lips, as the driver mumbles Sri Lankan at another set of red traffic lights. Aroused by our hiding, we'll stroke to their tempo, foreplay to their drugged and their drunken beat, before making love to the lonely tune of their fingers drumming on the vinyl. Drum, my love. Drum to me. Come on, my love, come hide with me amongst the pen's hair clips and scrawled numbers discarded on the back of those spent flip-top matches. And together for a night we'll try outrun the sleep, until the world has been driven to where it should be, and that inevitable will rip either you or me free, and leave the other here like a spent cigarette lighter, and leave the other here aglow with the ghost of our flames, and leave the other here with the fading glow of our flames.
That's Taxi Lover. I actually wrote that poem when I was about 19, and so AI's finally put it to music. But I want to talk about something serious before I bring on the great man. Um, a few years ago, we did a lot of touring with Wade Norshausen and the Billboard Battalion. I know in the last few years he hasn't been that fond of me, but regardless, I don't have any animosity towards him at all. And I actually feel for him because I've heard that for Christmas he got a stroke and he's in quite a bad way. So this is him. This is him on one of our tours that we did. There's Florence behind him. And I just want to say that I really wish him the best. And I hope that he's still with Belinda. I believe that was his partner then. And yeah, I just wish them the best in his recovery. It's very, very difficult to come back from a stroke. So I hope it's minor And Wade, I hope you get better, brother, and take great care of yourself. And hopefully this year will improve from here. That done. Let's bring on the Lindsay. Here he is. How are you?
Hello, Michael. Yeah, it's good. That's a fairly sober way to start, and I certainly
man.
wish all the
This year's
best.
starting.
One of the things that I would
with
say, just briefly in terms of that, he's a relatively young man. My eldest son, who passed away a couple of years ago, he had an unsuccessful operation on a brain tumor 13 years before he died, and they did savage damage to his brain, and he lost a lot of his facility to access words. And so that was when I first started to have a professional and a personal interest in the phenomenon of neuroplasticity. And whilst our brain can't repair itself, what it does is it finds alternate pathways to give you access to what you actually need.
Yes, I have heard of it, yes.
My eldest son Scott made. He never recovered enough to be able to work or anything, but his improvement was really encouraging and spectacular. And so even though a stroke is a terrible thing, it is recoverable. And I would hope that if Wade does get that message, that it will turn around his attitude. And I'm sure he's got professional people talking to him about this anyway, but it's not all bad news. There is a reasonable capacity, and the younger you are, and the more you challenge. I remember Scott was an artist, and he was a coffee lover, and he'd lost the labels to everything. Like, he didn't know my name anymore. You asked him what something was, and he wouldn't know. But if you said, "Can you point to the table?" he always, so he had the language, he just didn't have the access to it. And so he would go into a cafe, and he would say, "Could I have a please?" And they'd say, "Do you want a coffee, mate?" He'd say, "Yeah, but one of those." And they'd say, "You want a short black?" "Excellent." And they'd say, "Why don't you just fucking ask for a short black?" Sorry, I promised myself I wouldn't swear on this podcast. And he carried a little.
That's it. Hoody's never going to have you on.
But he carried a little laminated card with an apology and an explanation written very briefly on it. And he would just hand it to them, and they would read it. And at least more than 50% of them would hand him the card back and say, "Sorry to hear that, mate. There'll be no charge for the coffee today." However, his brilliant speech pathologist said to him, "Scott, do you want to be a really good mime artist, or do you want to use neuroplasticity to regain access to your vocabulary?" And he said, "I want the second one." And so he stopped doing drawings of things in order to communicate. He stopped doing charades. And I remember he rang me one day and he said, "Dad, I can say coffee." That was one of the first words that he regained access to. And it was just,
wow.
It was a difficult time.
Yeah. So, but then you lost him.
Yes, he Christmas before last, the cancer that had done absolutely nothing for 11 or 12 years inexplicably came back with about 8 different metastases in his brain and killed him within a period of a month or two. So I'm not willing to speculate as to why that might have happened. Everyone watching this podcast will be able to fill in the blanks. But yes, sadly, there was an awful period in the weeks leading up to his death, but he didn't suffer for a terribly long time. And he now either proved his thesis that there is no God, and he's just gone, or he now knows the truth and he's waiting for my time to come so that he can apologize to me for not believing me that there is something bigger than us.
That's true. I think your father's the same.
That's exactly right.
I think it's every parent's nightmare, though, no matter how old you are, to outlive your children. So that must have been a horrific thing, Lindsay.
It was tough on many levels. However, my personal philosophy is that death awaits us all, and we've got an obligation 100%. We've got an obligation to exploit that unknown length of time that we've got, to be the best us that we can possibly be. I can't think of any higher purpose in life than to have the richest, fullest, and most meaningful life you can have. And
Shine the brightest you can while you're here.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to say, I mean, not the way to be watching, but I was watching today because I've just heard now, just before I went to the show, that he's had the stroke. But there's new research coming in that magic mushrooms rebuild the brain, rebuild dead cells and neural links and everything in the brain. But I'm not sure he's going to try that. But it'd be an interesting recovery journey, I tell you that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yes, I've had a number of clients who've experimented with magic mushrooms and ayahuasca and a whole bunch of interesting stuff. And yes, I'd love to have the courage to do it. But as long as it is illegal and therefore risky, I respect the way my brain works now too much to be adding chemicals to it that could,
I've done it once or twice, but I'm not really into it. It's and I like my brain, you know.
Yes,
it's my only real good asset. There's anyway, here we are now. We've been doing these shows, and there's always a sense that everything's going to calm down and we're going to start heading back to a bit of normality or a common sense world where we go, okay, yep, things are starting to make sense again. But instead, we are going the completely opposite way. What are your thoughts on Albanese's hate speech laws? What have you read about them and what are your thoughts?
Okay, well, and it's a very rich topic. And from my perspective, I'm going to be a little guarded in what I say. I think one of the consequences of such legislation is that there will be a fairly broad category of people who will begin to be more guarded in their speech. And that's both a good and a bad thing. Now, I'm a fan of honesty. I want to speak the truth. Yeah. Unfortunately, there are people who find the truth so unpalatable that they'll fight you for the right to stop you speaking a truth. The other thing is that the truth and language are both slippery elements, and so that means it's what I want to believe when I look at this kind of existentially and try and steelman it to look for some legitimacy and rationale in it. The lazy use of language is an avoidable problem. That if I refer to you in a way which I have no way of knowing that it's going to be offensive to you, but I speak in a way that you construe as being offensive, we have a mutual obligation. I think you have an obligation to pull me up and politely share with me your discomfort with whatever it was that I just referenced, and then if I am a genuine person who's genuinely interested in your well-being, and I pretend to be that when we're having these conversations, Michael. That was a joke, Michael. You're allowed to smile at it. I'm pretending that I'm interested in your well-being, Michael. But anyway, but the reality is I am interested in everybody's well-being. I'm genuinely interested in yours. But there are very few people on earth who I deliberately want to act or speak in a way which is distressing to them. And so if another person explains to me that the manner in which I casually use language is some form of psychological problem for them, then I'll do my best to accommodate them. Now, there is a limit to that, and we don't even have to go into that tonight. But so that means this law, about which I've got many, many reservations, it's an opportunity for us to lift our game. It's an opportunity for us to not be lazy or selfish or discourteous in the manner in which we communicate with other humans. Now, it's a tough gig because sometimes, particularly in this 21st century, there are people who are incredibly sensitive to perceived offence. And you and I have talked about in the past, the old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. You will remember that I add a third stanza to that, unless I let them. And so if I have been in some way acclimatized or trained to believe that the world is actually trying out to get me, and so when someone references me, when someone says, that old guy with the white hair over there, oh, how dare you, you're being ageist, you're having a go at my white hair, you're a horrible person. Now, this law could very well see somebody in prison for 5 years by speaking the truth about me. I'm an old dude with white hair. So they're concerns, but I think it's thrusting something into the mainstream conversation, which I think deserves being considered. My understanding, and this is a very limited, I've not read the 400 pages of the legislation, and I have no real interest in it. I just want an everyman's understanding of it. But my understanding is that it's currently limited to religious matters. It's the Trojan horse that it appears to be is related to anti-Semitism. Now, I have known many Jewish people. I've had Jewish friends. I have personally no reason to think ill of any Jewish people. So that means I do not want to have the legal right to speak hatefully about a group of people just because they're Jewish, or because they're the color of their skin, or the religion, or the country they come from, or whatever. I don't want that legal right. And so if that's what's being limited, then I'm not violently opposed to this if that's all it is. And I'm not saying that's all it is. I'm just saying under those circumstances. However, if Michael Gray Griffith carries out an action which is harmful to me, I want to be able to call him out on that behaviour. What it means is I need to be a little bit less emotional when Michael harms me with his actions or his words. I want to invoke the discipline of not saying that Michael Gray Griffith is a horrible person. What I want to train myself to do is say, yeah, I know Michael Gray Griffith, and I've seen examples of his bad behaviour. So that means I'm now not demonstrating hatred towards Michael. I'm demonstrating what I personally believe is my legitimate right to hate somebody's behaviour. So, I don't want to have the right to blame all Muslims for the behaviour of a handful of I don't know whether it's a minority or not, but I don't want to. What I want to do is focus on the people whose behaviour is hateful, and if they happen to be Muslim, then I don't want that to be the defining thing. I want their appalling behaviour to be the defining thing. This is a person who happens to be Muslim and who gunned down a whole bunch of people enjoying a Jewish barbecue. So I'm very much in two minds about it. I looked specifically today to find groundswell interest in approving this particular legislation. I looked for evidence of people saying, "Oh, it's about time we passed a law like this." Now, I did that because I expected to find a lot of them that would have been invisible to me before I started looking today, because I'm a conservative, and the things that I look at on things like Google and Facebook, the algorithm understands my philosophies. And so it because it wants me to keep my eyes on the screen, it feeds me things that I think I'll be approving of and continue to watch. And so my naive assumption in going on this intentional search today was that I would turn over a rock of more liberal left viewpoints, and I would find commentators and influencers and people like you populating the other end of the political spectrum and doing cartwheels over the introduction of this legislation to stop people like us, says he, generalising to the freedom community that you and I are talking to, being able to say the hateful things that we say, like, there's only two sexes. But I couldn't find it. And I searched and I searched and I searched, and I could find institutions, I could find politicians, I could find academics, but I couldn't find any sign of a groundswell.
No.
Now, that
there's a tsunami the other way.
Exactly. In fact, I found it really irritating that even though I was very specific in my interrogation of Google, of YouTube, and of AI, I tried to make my prompts very specific.
Yeah.
And all that we come up with is the outrage, the people, the sort of things that it's not unreasonable for the freedom community to be distressed about. Man, as you say, there's a tsunami of that. Now,
yeah.
And that actually segues into another point that I wanted to make with you, which I think is an optimistic point. And it's about bullying. And there's a number of fairly well-known aspects of bullying. And we can talk about schoolyard bullying, we can talk about corporate bullying, or we can talk about governmental, even international bullying. The thing about bullies is that they're cowards, that bullies never pick on people that are bigger than them. That bullying, let's take the schoolyard as a metaphor for this, and we can work it through if we need to. The schoolyard bully looks
That's
for
why I
support.
could never be a bully. I wanted to be, but everyone was taller than me. I did.
Well,
I actually said, can you get some dwarves? Can we get some dwarf kids in here?
Yeah. Well, to my shame, I was a schoolyard bully, but not physically. I was an intellectual schoolyard bully. That I was never big or strong or pugnacious enough. But I could make people cry just by vilifying them. And so,
Cool.
and I regret that. I wish that had never been a part of my personality as an immature young man.
Do you want to finish before I counteract that to what you just
Sure.
said? Because I actually think just about bullies. I actually want to go back because there's sort of two major things, but I will do bullies first. I actually believe all this anti-bullying stuff is actually detrimental. I think bullies are an essential part of building character. You're getting bullied, you got to deal with it. And it makes you stronger for dealing with it. Getting someone, teach you to fix your fights or this, that actually makes you weaker. And now I know there are times where it gets out of hand and the terrible events I do and kids kill themselves for it. I know that's bad. But I don't think the fact of trying to knacker all the bullies is the way. I was bullied mercilessly because I had lots of different schools. I've had trolls on here going crazy. I mean, they were dancing over it while I was in hospital over the fact that I might die, and I'm tougher now because of it. Very hard to bully me now, and
me too.
Yeah, and I've learned that through having to either ignore them or deal with them. And I think a perfect example of that is going to be in a lot of trouble is Trump. Now, Trump gets bullied. Albanese is upset by the bikini things. Every single day you get on, you'll see 9 or 10 different GIFs or memes or something else, AI thing attacking Trump. He doesn't give a rat's ass.
Yep.
Now, that's a man who you can't bully. He can bully you, but you can't bully him because you're beneath him, And so I think there's another way, but that's only my thoughts with that.
Oh, no, Michael, I'm in complete agreement with you. All of the research about schoolyard bullying, I did professional development on schoolyard bullying, feels like 15 years ago. And the international expert that ran this professional development began her presentation, this 2-day seminar, by reporting that she had been to, I'm going to say Yellowstone National Park, somewhere where there are grizzly bears. And as they were entering, there was a whole group of people. She was on an international think tank about schoolyard bullying. And as they entered, there was a great big sign saying what to do if you're confronted by a grizzly bear. And so she was with the world's preeminent bullying expert. And she said to this preeminent expert, pointed the sign out and said, what do you think about this advice as to how to deal with a grizzly bear? And the advice was, stand completely still and do nothing until the grizzly bear walks away. And the international bullying guy said, well, it's the only thing that makes sense. And she said, well, why do we tell everyone exactly the opposite in terms of bullying? Why do we tell people to go and run and find a park ranger with a pepper spray or a gun to kill the grizzly bear? Why are we not telling children in the schoolyard, do what Donald Trump does and just smile and wave, boys, just ignore the bully? Now, there is a very distinct threshold that if it becomes physical bullying, if somebody bigger than you is beating you up, that's when you need to call the bigger bully. But
Yeah,
it's the
maybe.
manner in
I
which
don't
the
know.
bigger bully.
When I was in Thailand, I got shown this king cobra. They said it killed an elephant. It's an enormous thing. I've never seen such a big
Yep.
snake, especially a
Yep.
poisonous snake. And the little Thai guy said, "Oh, was it Thailand? Yeah, the little Thai guy said, what you have to do is if it raised up in front of you, so to be, but I'd be looking eye to eye with it, and it said you
Yep.
just have to stand still and look it in the eye." And I said,
Yep.
"Bring me the man who did that. I want to meet the man who eyed off a king cobra in the eye. I don't believe he
Yep.
exists. I believe there's thousands of people with snake bites in their ass because they were running the other way, which is what I would do. But standing still in front of a grizzly bear, slightly different from being in school where someone wants your lunch money. But I'd probably give my lunch money to the grizzly bear. But you work it out. Like you don't go straight to violence. You try to reason. You try to figure out what can do. You eventually in the schoolyard, what you realize, because the thing is, what the bully realized is, hey, this kid gave me his lunch money on Monday, and then I got his lunch money on Tuesday, and then on
reward
Wednesday I got
system.
his lunch money and his Nike shoes, and then at some point you realize I have to do something about this, even if it
Yep.
means taking a beating, and even if you do take a beating, and in school I had numerous fights, always taller guys. If you took a beating, they never touched you again because they want someone who's not going to fight back. And now the country is that. The country is not fighting back, and this is bullying. This is bullying against us, saying you can't use that word, you can't use this word. And these hate speech laws, I'd like to actually, I totally disagree. I think this is after dissonance. It's a weapon to silence dissidents. Myself, Topher, Hoodie, you, anyone who challenges the government in any way, they now have a tool to get rid of them. And we've seen that in England. In England, I've been reaching out to podcasters there, and they're too terrified to talk now because they will go to jail. And unfortunately, in this schoolyard now, going to jail is going to be the test of the podcasters. All these podcasters have emerged around us, lots of great people doing lots of great things. Well, now it's the real test. If these laws come in, what are you going to do about it? Because the only thing to do about it is if they charge you, is to realize, well, if you really believe what you say, you're going to go to jail. And Monica Smith's done it. Nick done it. Nick, what's his name? Nick Patterson. He went to jail longer than Monica Smith. He was actually thrown in the yard. So, but he was a boxer, so he was okay. And there's been others. We've got Raina in South Australia. She's one of our people. Pulled a cop's hair. The cop had alopecia, and apparently the whole video shows the cop was quite aggressive to her. She's got 4 years in jail. So this is targeted. I believe that this is an act of war on the Australian people. It's betraying everything we stand for, the shrines, because when you hear free speech, the most important part of free speech is the word free. That's it. And if you start going, you can't say that, you can't say that, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't even call it free speech anymore. It's just speech, moderated speech. And that is a great loss because I believe free speech, and when you're young, you can be insulting to everything, but you learn to get past that. but most people are considerate. I've grown up in Australia where I don't see the racism that deserves this amount of reaction. And where I saw it is it's a song I have called Victoria Street. I used to be a tram driver, and Melbourne was famous around the world as the place where multiculturalism works best. So you've got all these nationalities on the tram. No one's doing racist things. They're just
Yep.
going from A to B. I think racism itself is a tool they use to try to divert us. They go, oh, the white people hate you, black people. The Indian people, they're going to rob you of this, and the black people are going to break into your house, and the white people are going to steal everything off you. And it's all to get us fighting each other when there's actually only two castes in the entire world: the extraordinarily rich and the rest of us. And racism is used to keep us divided and fighting amongst each other and other things like that. So I am of a personal attack that this is probably, after jabbing everybody against their will, this is the most abhorrent legislation that I've ever seen coming out, apart from, say, kill the
Exactly.
bill. This is insane. This is the silencing of a good people and treating the good people as though they are incapable of monitoring their own speech. So the government has to come along going, we're going to teach you how to speak because you rabble don't know. You're just idiots and you don't even know you're saying bad words. How often do you go around Australia? Do you go you go to supermarkets? How often do you hear anyone saying the N word? I'm not actually going to say it on here now because I do find the word offensive. I'm not going to say it. I never hear it. I never hear people yelling it out to anyone. I hear, calling you F and C, but that's usually young men calling each other names. So I don't hear the N word. And I do hear people hating different nationalities, Indians and Jews and Muslims. You hear that in banter. You hear that all the time in private banter, but you're always going to hear that. And I've heard it all my life. But it doesn't mean that we've set up death camps and tried to eradicate one race or we've isolated one race. We still get on. You know what I mean? It's so I think this is draconian. I think it's a move to control us, to subjugate us, and I think it betrays everything our forefathers, the Anzacs, risked their lives for and died for. I think it's a betrayal of the very core values of what Australia is. So I disagree with you slightly.
Yeah, and we are at a point of disagreement, but it's I think it's in the detail rather than the overall. You've said an awful lot in that little exposition there, and I've tried to take some notes.
To be honest, that was 6 minutes, and you had 28 minutes, so you're in front of me.
So hang on, who's the guest here?
I guess co-host.
Okay, so you began with referencing your own schoolyard experiences, and you found that either fighting back or taking a beating was an effective way to lance the boil of bullying. And I don't deny it.
I fought back. I just happened to get beaten up. I'm small. But I fought back. It wasn't an option. I didn't think, I'll take the beating. There was no choice.
But the fact that was an effective technique for you doesn't mean that it's the only effective technique. Now, one of the very real problems that I perceive with the freedom community is that we feel that the only option for us is to violently and viciously fight back against this draconian totalitarianism that we're watching creeping throughout the world.
I disagree there too. I haven't seen any violence in our community.
I'm talking about
Desi.
I'm talking about the language that we use, our rhetoric. We have a tendency.
I wouldn't use the word violent. Maybe
well, we are living in
something else.
We're a minority in a community that believes that words are violent.
All right.
So that means yes, we can fight back. Now, unfortunately, this particular set of bullies that we are confronted with are too big for us to fight back against meaningfully. We've got the David and Goliath potential available to us, but and we would all love that. As I've admitted on this show a couple of times, my favourite genre of movies is the revenge movies, where Liam Neeson goes to France and saves his daughter from the human traffickers. But I get that it's fantasy. That that you and I are not going to overthrow the government, no matter how eloquent we might be.
Yep.
However, we have to live within a country. Like, I can't afford to, and I haven't found a more desirable place to live. I can't afford to leave Australia. That means I've got to live here. Now, if my reaction to the governmental and organisational bullying that so enrages me and the rest of the freedom community, if my response to that is to get angrier and angrier and angrier, I am allowing their behaviour to negatively influence the enjoyment of my life. And it's futile, because I can't beat them. And so my anger becomes a self-destructive thing, and I just end up getting beaten up all the time. And it's conceivable that they might choose you and I as a canary in the coal mine, and they might come after us. They might glean the one or two words that we use or reference in today's conversation to come after us. And if we do, God help us, because they're bigger, more powerful, and they're more willing to cheat than you and I do. We don't have the ability to cheat the way they do. And so the silver lining of this particular black cloud, of this, what I think is a pretty scary bit of legislation, the silver lining is that it might just motivate us to start to talk and act a little bit differently, which has been my common thesis through all of these conversations. I want us to build a campfire of joy and functionality and acceptance that people are attracted to. I don't want people coming because they say, oh, gee, it sounds like you guys are having a fantastic argument. Can I join? I mean, you've seen the Monty Python sketch on the £5 argument, haven't you?
I think so, yeah.
Paid for a the guy came in and he said, is this the room where I get the £5 argument? No, it's not. Oh, but they told me to come in here. No, they didn't. But hang on, I've paid £5 for an argument. No, you haven't. It's futile argument. Yeah. Argue, and I've said to you a number of times, an argument is two people trying to ascertain who is right, and a conversation, which is what we try and have, is two people trying to ascertain what is right. Now, if we as a movement start to focus on what is right, not trying to prove that we are right, then that could change the entire dynamic of this. I mean, it's like crazy Christians. Oh, you haven't found Jesus. You're going to go to hell. Nobody wants to have an ongoing conversation with somebody like that, and I don't know why they keep doing it. I don't know where they find their acolytes. When we walk the dog, there's oftentimes a couple of lovely ladies who are Jehovah's Witnesses, and they just stand there quietly with their little stand of pamphlets, and we engage with them and have a chat with them, and we don't talk religion or anything. But you've got to wonder how many people they actually manage to get into the Jehovah's Witnesses just by standing there. But they're not being offensive to anybody. They're not harming anybody by doing it. More strength to them. Not that I'm not proselytizing on their behalf. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to be angry and outraged and banging your fist on the table all the time. It just you get a warm glow from the people who do passionately agree with you, and that's going to do is shrink our numbers. I mean, the stand in the park that I go to, it's down to 3 people now.
Yeah, and that's we're hearing that a lot. Yeah, we're finding that. Let's go back, because I have to disagree with you again respectfully, but let's go back to truth. Truth is interesting because I hear a lot of people saying that's my truth. It's our truth, my truth. So there seems to be our truth is my interpretation of it. It's my view. It's my opinion. But then there's a real truth. There's an actual truth that, that's a perfect example at the moment is there's a thing going viral in America with a senator questioning one of the Democrats' major doctors, and he's saying, can men give birth? And she just refuses to answer the question. She just doesn't answer it. And she can't because she's invested. She's got backers, she's got trans people working with her. But the whole world knows men can't give birth. I can't even believe we're asking the question. And here's this, esteemed doctor refusing to answer it. And that what happens if the lies get perpetuated like that, we get lost. The truth is like true north, something we're always aiming for, so we can sort of know where we are. And I think one of the best tools we have to discover the truth, including the truth of who we are as people, is free speech. My fear is that what people do is they don't want to offend, they don't want to get in trouble, so they won't just curtail or won't just self-censor with, I won't say that word, I won't say this word. They won't say anything. They'll just do shallow, simple talk. Talk about sport, talk about renovating their kitchens, talk about their trip to Bali. And if you remember pre-COVID, that's how Australia was. We went in a place where you'd go in and someone would be hollering at someone. Even if they did, usually they were crazy and everyone just let them go. Maybe they're on drugs, maybe they're just a nutter, and they let it go. But the good majority of people would not get on a tram or a shopping center and start screaming obscenities about another race. It just didn't really happen here in Australia. And so I don't think we actually need these laws. I don't see any great need. We've already got the hate speech laws in place. They can do everything they want to do anyway. This takes it to another level. What I actually think happening is the country is so corrupt. They've got the turbines. They're bullshit. They don't work. A lot of them aren't even connected. The solar panel farms, we know they're not connected. I've had people who work on these farms going, they're not actually connected. They don't actually work. Huge amounts of money going overseas. We're pushing transgenderism in the schools without the parents' knowledge. That's evil. Full-term abortions, evil. The majority of Australians, if you had a referendum, I reckon 80 to 90% or more would go evil, evil, evil. We're in this crazy time where we're losing our culture, including, it's not against immigration, but mass migration. I'm going to town after town. All anyone's talking about is how their town is being lost. The new migrants are buying up everything. Apparently, the rumor out there is that they get all these grants to do it. So they're using our money to buy our properties, and people are angry. And you've got people are angry. It's like ready to explode because they're watching, they're losing their culture, losing their power, and they're going to angst up. And how do you stop that? You bring in these hate speech laws. So in England, they're pouring Muslims into the country, and army age groups. And in Ireland, you might have a village with, I know, Irish relatives, about 200 or 300 people, and they're putting a 500 or 600 or 1,000 migrants next to them. It's causing anger. And then what they're doing is, anger, you speak out about it, you go to jail. And so they've arrested 12,000 people in England for hate speech crimes, a lot of them your age or older. And what the point of that, I believe, I don't have evidence, but the point of that is to crush dissent. Stay silent. We know it's not fair. We don't care. And if you speak about it, we'll brutalize you. I mean, the fact that Bondi shooting was done by Muslims, those men were Muslims. Not every Muslim was there shooting. I believe you that too. Most Muslims just want to get on with their lives, but they were radical Muslims shooting up a beach. And some people say they were Jewish, they were Mossad, or who knows? But on the face of it, they were Islamic people. They had ISIS flags in the car. They were Islamic people, Muslims shooting Jews on the beach. And what does Albanese bring in? Anti-Islamic things. If you say anything about Islam that they deem hate speech, you're going to jail. Now that is insulting, and that is, it's actually inconceivable that an Australian Prime Minister who's a child of those who have fought and died for our freedoms is actually bringing in these laws. What I see is they're trying to create a world of safety. Maybe that's their best option. But this safety is a gilded prison. and our
Mhm.
children and grandchildren are going to be born into this gilded prison. And when they're young, instead of saying sticks and stones will break your bones, but names will never hurt you, go, now listen, you can't say that, you can't say this, you can't look at that person, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. That is not an environment for a human soul to grow up in. It's just not. I think this is an act of war on our culture from our own people who are either paid by overseas corporations and they're on the take, or they are brainwashed by an ideology that they are so deep in, they simply cannot get out of. They have to keep digging deeper into their ideology and their bullshit. And they can't have debate. So hate speech laws crush debate. And the reason they don't want debate and why we never see them debating is they know their ideology is built on a web of lies, has no substance. And if they actually sat down there and had proper debates, it would crumble. And we see that in the Congress in America, where the Democrats come up and they just crumble. They just look like idiots because they're trying to perpetuate something that is just clearly a lie that Republican senators just take apart effortlessly. You see that with climate change. They had, I'll just finish with this statement. They had all these climate change experts who are basically changing how America lives to prevent climate change. And I saw this senator go, how much CO2 is in the atmosphere? And they had no idea. And he goes, it's 0.010 of a thing percent and now this. And they're like sitting there and they just don't know what to say because it's the truth. It's the actual truth. It's the scientific truth. Like what it said about men giving birth. Scientifically, men cannot give birth. And if you find a man can give birth, then he must be androgynous and he's probably got two sets of female organs and male organs. Extraordinarily rare. But your bog standard man will never, ever give birth to anything other than a good dump. That's it.
Yep. Okay, so a couple of things in that. First, on the subject of truth, you and I are definitely going to disagree on that, because I can partially agree with you that some truths are easily defendable and difficult to deny. But on the rare occasions, thankfully rare occasions, where I've been called upon to be an expert witness in court, they ask you to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
And millions of people have made that affirmation within court. When it came my time, I was not comfortable saying, yes, I agree. So I worked out that, and I've never been questioned on this in court or in tribunals. When they ask me, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I say, I do to the best of my ability. And they've never queried it.
Yeah.
Now, the bottom line is you have your truth, Michael, and I have my truth. Now we both
I agree. There are our truth. Yep.
So that means there are things that you and I will agree on that you and I will see as absolute truths.
Yeah.
But we don't actually know that they're absolute truths. But even this sort of crazy idea of men giving birth, even in your impassioned outburst on truth and common sense, you said there are rare examples of people having dual sexual organs, and it's conceivable that a man could give birth. Now
no, they're androgynous, so they're half man, half woman. So they're a boy. They're not actually a man. They're halfway between. And I agree. Look, perfect example of the truth is when I filled this bus up with diesel. I knew I didn't put diesel in it. Exactly. That was my truth. Yep. I would have gone on court, put my hand up and said, absolute petrol. I put petrol in, not diesel. I would have stood up in court. I promised to tell the whole truth. I did not. And Kelly actually called the garage and they looked back on the CCTV and I put petrol in there. Exactly. And I still today struggle because I know I didn't, but I can't get away from the actual truth. So you can have your truth, my truth, but I still think in a lot of occasions there is an absolute truth.
Yeah, but absolute
not in every
truth,
case, but it is.
Well, thank you for that acknowledgement. It's far fewer than not in every case. There are very few absolute truths.
Yeah.
I mean, gravity's not absolute. You've only got to go about 50 kilometers in the upwards direction, and you'll discover that that gravity's not an absolute. There are very few absolute truths, and you and I both had examples where our environment has proved to us that what we believed was true is actually incorrect, and it's destabilizing. And your brain is still struggling with the fact that some idiot put petrol in, and it couldn't have been you because you remember putting diesel in.
Yeah.
Now, this is why I'm very uncomfortable with people passionately fighting for the truth, because I understand how easy it is to be wrong. And and I believe I don't significantly disagree with you on free speech, but I think the more powerful way to discover the truth is to look for the errors in your own argument. Try to prove yourself wrong. Now that's the opposite of free speech. That's being honest with yourself. That's saying, okay, let me do a thought experiment. What if I'm wrong? Now, I don't think that happens very often in ordinary humans. And I am not a fan of this legislation. And just briefly touching back on the bullying element of it. One of the things that occurs with bullying is the bullying, as you said, if you give them your lunch money on Monday, and then you give it to them on Tuesday, now the bully has learned that he can push you, and he'll push you harder and harder. And a couple of things happen. He either pushes you to the point where you break and you say, do what you must. I'm not going to give you my lunch money anymore. Now the bully's now in a bind. He's now got to beat up a weaker person and look and feel bad as a result, or you win. He lets you walk away. That's one outcome of bullying. That's standing stock still in front of the cobra, looking at it in the eye, and the cobra doesn't know what to do. It's accustomed to biting people on the arse as they run away. So that's bullying outcome number one. Bullying outcome number two is you do what the freedom movement is I think futilely trying to do. You look for a David with his slingshot, or you build the freedom movement's muscles and numbers up to the point where you can physically fight the bully. Good luck with that outcome. Or you can ignore the damn bully and adapt to living with the bully in your presence, and eventually the bully gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and eventually the bully explodes. Have you seen what's happened in Poland and Norway and Sweden at the moment in terms of mass migration?
Yes. In Poland, they're not allowing any in, I've heard.
And neither are they in Norway and Sweden, and they're left-wing governments.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Arab nations, I think the Arab Emirates is not letting their students go to England because they don't want to be radicalized as Muslims.
So
I just want to go back to the word adapt. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, my argument there is that bullies are helpless but to escalate their bullying behaviour, and I think that's what this bill demonstrates. And if we recognise it as such and treat the bully as pathetic and don't let the bully come within punching distance of us if we can avoid it, but we minimise the impact that the bully has on us, and we get on with having the richest, most fullest and meaningful lives that we can, then eventually the bully will implode, as they have in Poland and Norway and Sweden. I think we're in the dying throes of this left-wing bullying.
That took a lot of that. Well, let's look at solidarity. I just want to go back to where you said adapt.
Yep.
What's the difference between adapt and comply?
Interesting question.
Because we all know one truth from the Polish. All of the Polish tell me you cannot comply your way out of freedom. So what's the difference between adapt and comply?
Okay, well, my often repeated mantra in these conversations and many conversations is, if you are constantly engaging in some form of argumentation and getting nowhere, you need to adapt. Now, that doesn't mean you say to the person, okay, I agree, men can have babies. That's not what you do. You adapt and you now, for example, if I had my dear friend Michael Gray Griffith was having this problem with me, I would soften my stance, not to the point of agreement or compliance, but I would say, Michael, I love you too much as a friend to waste any more of our time on this futile argument. Now, what I'm willing to promise you, Michael, is that when you come up with some sort of legitimate, valid justification for your stance, I promise you I will be ready to hear it. Now, if you come to me and say, I've found the argument, Lindsay, it will make us feel better if we just agree that I'll go, no. I didn't ask you for an emotional response. I don't care about your emotions in terms of that. So that's why I don't want to argue with you anymore. I want you to come up with some common sense, rational, legitimate thing that I can go, oh, that's the missing piece of the puzzle. That's why I was being so dumb in not believing that men can have babies. Thank you for helping me out of my stupidity, Michael. Now, that's adapting to an environment which I don't want to agree with and I don't want to walk away from, so I adapt to it. And I think this, as awful as this legislation is in terms of how much it affronts us as people in the freedom movement, and as much as it's the thin edge of the wedge and all of these almost certainly terrible things, all we can do is adapt to it. And
so you adapt to that. What if they come across with another thing that takes it another level, like the bully? So on Monday, you agree with the bully, No.
I'm not agreeing with the bully. I'm saying to the bully, I have no interest in engaging with you. If you're going to beat me up because of that, this is your moment to do it. But I'm just going to get on about my day. Now,
okay. What if you're a younger father, say you're about 30, and your wife, different wife, is very much in complying with the government because she's scared of the government because she's seen what's happening, and you have a 7-year-old, 8-year-old son, or maybe 10-year-old son, who a teacher has asked him, do you think he's a woman? And he's taken by that, getting some attention from the teacher, and you find out that they haven't even told you because they don't have to tell you. So they're already starting the transition thing. This is happening in Victoria now. They're starting the transition thing. And if you say anything about it, if you're not actually 100% forward of your 7 or 8 or 9-year-old son starting the transition period, puberty blockers and all that, they will remove you as a father. How do you adapt to that?
That's a diabolically difficult dilemma to put a person into.
Australia now.
Yes, and I'm not arguing that. However, if I was that 30-year-old father in that situation, I would have to understand that I had no power, that the bully is too big and too strong, and that means I would have to adapt to that. Now,
how?
Well,
you've got your son. Your son is on the path to be rendered infertile. So your lineage will stop with your son. So how do you adapt?
I know that whatever I come up with as a response, your agile and creative mind is going to be able to mess me up.
No, it's just simple questions. Simple questions.
Yeah, it's a complicated and difficult question, Michael, because as that 30-year-old father, I know that it's not a fight I'm going to be able to win. I don't have the resources, I don't have the connections, I don't have the knowledge, and I don't have the time. That the bully is bigger than me. So that means I have to find a way to adapt to it. Now, I think, and this is top of the head stuff, I haven't given this the consideration that it deserves because it's a big deal and it's probably happening in hundreds of households as we speak. I think the very first thing. Sure.
Perhaps the reason it's an unbeatable fight is because early on, when they were first starting this, we adapted and we didn't stop them then. So you got free speech coming in now. They're bringing in these hate speech laws. I will just have to adapt. But as bullies, they're going to get worse. They're going to start.
Hang on, Michael. Wait a minute. You've just changed the subject. No, you've just changed the subject.
No, it's the same subject. It's the same subject.
No, it's not. You want me to travel back in time?
When they brought in same-sex marriage, there were people saying, if you bring in same-sex marriage, they're going to bring in the safe school thing. That's where it started. Because I was
And I
pro
don't-
same-sex
There's no
marriage.
disagreement there, Michael. But we
No,
can't
let me finish.
undo
Let me finish
history.
though. But what I'm saying is, you're saying we couldn't defeat it now. So as a father, you've just got to be a spectator to watching your beautiful son, who you love and adore, start the path to becoming infertile, and probably
Now, can we
appoint
replay
even
this conversation?
suicidal.
Can we replay this conversation to where I actually said those words, Michael? You just filled in the
No, I'm
fucking
saying
blank,
those words.
mate. Yeah,
No, but you're saying
said,
you're
no,
adapting.
you just said, Lindsay, you're saying you're going to have to just be a spectator and watch your beautiful son be fucked up. That's what you just told me.
Yeah,
I said.
You said there's nothing you can do. The bully's too big. So
No,
if the bully's too big, what can
I
you
didn't
do?
say there's nothing you can do. I said you are powerless to overcome the bully, and now you've jumped in and said we need to travel back in time to fix this problem. Good luck with that. And you're now putting words into my mouth saying, well, wait a minute, Michael, this is really important. I'm telling you, psychologically, socially, interpersonally, there are many things that 30-year-old father can do.
Like what?
And they're all difficult. And they all run the risk of that child being permanently harmed.
Mm-hmm.
But what the child cannot do is undo the 20 years of indoctrination that began with things like the same-sex marriage rule. And we have to fight on the battleground that we're standing on. We can't say, oh, it's too hilly here. 2 days ago, we were in a perfect place for me to win this battle. Can we go back 2 days and have this fight now? We've got to fight where we are. And I'm telling you that if we try and meet this, if it's an enemy, if we try, and even if this enemy is our partner, our wife, or the school system, if we try and fight them with their own weapons, I guarantee you, we will not only fail, but we will be routed so significantly that we will bleed for the rest of our lives. But if we look at someone like Michael Griffith and go, wow, here's a guy who lost everything because he wouldn't go along with the status quo, and look at what he's created out of his life. If I'd have told you 5 years ago, Michael, that you were going to be living in a gorgeous old beat-up bus called Florence and with a new woman in your life that you love, and you were writing music with artificial intelligence, if I'd have told you that 5 years ago, you'd have called the mental health authorities and got me locked away. We have to adapt, we have to be creative, and we have to never give up. But we can't, if we try and make it a full frontal battle, we will lose. And that's what this dreadful legislation is going to teach us to do. It's going to drive us underground in our thoughts and our conversations, and that's going to change our actions. And maybe that little campfire in the wilderness is going to start looking a little cheerier and a little bit more welcome, because it's not going to be surrounded by a bunch of angry assholes banging on the table and saying, we've got to fight, we've got to fight, we've got to fight. They may as well be saying, we've got to lose, we've got to lose, we've got to lose.
Well, sometimes losing for the truth is a noble endeavor.
Okay. Well, I would not make that recommendation to that 30-year-old father for a minute.
Well, what else could he do?
He's got to get creative.
Let me make it simpler. So what I'm saying is, this is Monday now. First January we're in January 2026. We all knew this year was going to be difficult. So let's pretend we're all kids in the schoolyard, and it's Monday, and we're just finding out that we're going to be bullied on Monday for our lunch money, and our lunch money is our freedom of speech. If we don't want to be bullied, hand over your freedom of speech. Now, if you hand it over, it's very hard for you to take it back because they never stole it from you. You handed it over to adapt or comply, whatever. If you do it on Monday, if you stood up, you would have taken a beating, but the bully would back off because he's realizing, wow, those people are never going to give me their lunch money. If you hand over the lunch money and hope to adapt, 3 or 4 years later in school, where you're still getting bullied every day, you're losing a lot of weight because you never have lunch, it's going to be harder and harder for you to stand up and fight. And what happens in revolutions, and this is, I've talked to these people in Romania and Czechoslovakia and everywhere, the parents try to adapt and tell the kids, what can you do? They're too big. There's no way we can win. There's no way we can win. And then their children say this, and I've recorded this in an interview of 2 or 3 interviews actually with Romanians, that their children or their grandchildren would say to them before they went out, because the streets were on fire with revolution, and the mothers would say, don't go out, you'll get hurt. And one woman especially said her brother, 17, turned to her mother and said, I'm either going to come back a free man or I'm going to die. And he left the house. And what I'm saying is, I think now by trying to downplay what they're doing, we're going to leave the actual bloodied fight to the next generation, where this is our fight. And I believe right now, this is our fight. This is unacceptable. It has to be fought
Okay, and
right here,
Michael,
right now,
I have to.
or we lose, 2 secs, or we lose more than our country. We lose our power, we lose our identity, and we're going to have to live like shams for the rest of our life, pretending we're good people, when in actual fact, we are the cowards. Australia is not
Okay,
girt by
Michael,
sea, it's girt by
Michael, I
cowards.
have to stop you. I have to stop you on a point of order. What you are doing is you're trying to win an argument by making shit up that I have said or advocated.
No,
I'm
I'm just giving an example that what
Michael,
I think
you're repeatedly saying that I am doing and saying things that I have not done and said. I have not said
you did say the
comply.
word adapt.
But
You said
we've
you'd adapt.
attempted to explore that adapt is a way of creatively not complying.
I don't see it. I don't see how. I really don't.
Okay, well, what that means is that I'm advocating a concept that your brain can't currently handle because your brain is too deeply committed to fighting a fight, even if you die fighting it. Like that 17-year-old example you just gave.
It's a way of, do you think it's a way of trying to avoid a fight by trying to self-justify your way out of it and saying that's a good route to take when actually it's not?
Okay.
Because it's the quality of our children's and our grandchildren's liberty will basically depend on the actions we do now. That's what I really feel.
Michael,
it's not our safety, and in any war, you have to get bloodied. You have to. You can't
Michael,
go through or not get hurt.
This is frustratingly fascinating to watch a man as creative as you locked into such a dichotomous opinion. We are
a free country, and they are coming ready to silence us with the threat of imprisonment if we use words they don't approve. And it's so vague. It's very clear. They've even got.
Michael.
Look at this.
Michael, this is the most frustrating conversation I've ever had with you.
Look at this. To occurred before commencement. So they can go back in the last 5 years or 10 years and find things any Australian has said to imprison them or silence them. This is not something you can adapt to. This is an attack on us now.
At any time in our conversation, have I disagreed with you about the awfulness of this bill?
No, but I'm questioning the word adapt.
And that's because I lack
our way out of this.
Yeah, that's obviously because in this moment, I lack the linguistic skill to be able to either explain or demonstrate or lead you to understand what the difference is between compliance, surrender, and adaptation. I don't know how to communicate it to you, Michael. I'm telling you that, and it's what I do for a living. 100% of the people that come, 100% of the people that come and see someone like me are coming because their environment is reprehensible to them. They've either got a horrible boss or a horrible wife or horrible children or all the miseries that come to people like me. And almost none of those miseries are rectifiable by my client.
Mm-hmm.
So that means I spend my life trying to help people psychologically and socially adapt to a set of situations. And the ones that succeed are the ones that flourish. They don't win the fucking battle. They adapt to their circumstances in ways that are creatively meaningful to them. And it's not, thank God, it's not my job to tell them how to do that because I know nothing about them. I could be in your friend for 10 years and know nothing about you, Michael. So it's not my job to tell you what to do. It's my job to tell you, wow, it seems like a nonsensical no-win thing to fight a battle against Goliath. And then along comes a shepherd with a sling and a single stone and finds bloody whatever the giant's name was, weak spot. That's the
can I put another argument forward? What if the good majority of Australians decide, look, we're just going to adapt our way past this because if the government's so big, we can't do anything. So, as a group of individuals, they all decide to adapt, which we saw happen with the jabs. But what if those
Oh, no,
Australians,
no, Michael, that was not
30 or
adaptation.
40%?
That was not
All right.
adaptation, Michael. That was compliance. That
All
was
right.
not
But what about
adaptation.
if 30 or 40% of Australians, and I see it happening, actually said, you know what, we're not going to adapt. We're just going to say, no, we're not doing it. You want to throw us to jail,
Mhm.
build more jails. We're not adapting. This is the line in the sand. You've been going this far. You've been bullying us for ages, bullying us with, oh, you name it. There's nonstop. The government has been out of order for ages, bullying us for ages. And at some point, Australians said no. Now, if they actually said no and the government fell apart and these laws went away, that would be like a peacefully won. There's no violence, it's just saying no. It would be a peacefully won victory. And on that victory would come self worth, and we could build a new culture upon where we'd have the confidence of knowing if any government tried to do it this again, we know we've got 30, 40% of people who will actually stand their ground and say, no, unacceptable, we're not doing it, which make us stronger as a nation and give us some sense that we are architects of our country and not just passengers on a train where we can't reach the locomotive where our crazy politicians that are just driving us into tyranny.
Mhm.
I think that's the moment here now. I really think it is. Because what's worse, the
I
next
hope.
will be digital ID, but you won't be able to stop it because if you say anything about it online, you'll be removed online or jailed. And then it'll become the social credit score system. And the social credit score system is an open air jail. And
Mhm.
that's it.
Michael, unfortunately, up until this moment, I haven't had the opportunity to complete my thesis on the evolution of bullying. There
Mm.
comes a time where the bully bullies too many people, and you get the Bugs Life scenario. Remember the movie of Bugs Life, where the
Sometime.
uh, I think they were hornets were bullying the bugs,
Yeah,
and one of the
grasshopper.
hornets in one of the hornet grasshoppers. That's it. And
Yeah.
in private conversation in the grasshoppers gang, one of them said, "What would happen if these ants realize that there's 100 times more of them than there are of us?" And the head grasshopper smacked him over the back of the head, and said, "Don't even think that." Now that's the outcome you've just described is where I believe we will end up if the freedom movement adapts. If we move from our angry rhetoric, if we move from, yep, here's put the handcuffs on me, lock me up, you can't lock us all up. We can't win doing it that way, I believe. But if we change our approach and our attitude, if we start pointing out to people, what was it like when we didn't have these sort of, and if we just say to strangers, do you find yourself second guessing things that you say out in public these days? If
Mhm.
that eventually the bully pushes hard enough that the more numerous bullied people eventually say no. But it doesn't have to be a bloody revolution.
Mm. But
Maybe it can be.
we're not ready for revolution yet. In that
But,
argument, though,
but
with the
however, we've got an
grasshoppers,
ace in the hole, Michael. We've got an ace in the hole.
no, we
One
don't.
nation is one nation is now polling at close to
Yes.
the rate that the Liberal Party is. If this
Yes.
sort of bullshit that we're working through at the moment, this dreadful legislation that's being rushed through, we don't know which will be the straw that breaks that giant camel's back and where the camel says no. But
Well,
that's where the bullies are going to that's where the bullies are going to take it.
One Nation agreed to the hate speech laws the last time they tried to bring them in. Pauline Hanson agreed. I remember the interview where
Yeah.
she said it, and next to her, Malcolm Roberts looked aghast. He wasn't
Yeah.
aware. He just looked shocked. So I don't trust any politician. I think Pauline Hanson is in a good position now to pick it up, but I don't trust politicians. Now, with the thing about the grasshoppers, in response to that, I'll give you Stalin and Mao, who killed hundreds of millions of people between them,
Yep.
and both died peacefully in their sleep. So
Mhm.
I'm not a big believer that that happens. I believe for movies it can happen sometimes. I mean, it's happening in Iran at the moment, I think, and the whole world doesn't seem to care about it. I think it's incredible. Um, uh, I I feel that we have a moral responsibility. We have the responsibility of maintaining the freedoms that were given to us by our forebears. And I feel we absolutely, that's hugely important. But I think we have a moral obligation to the Australians who haven't even been conceived of yet, the ones our kids will give birth to, hopefully. And they have a right to be born with the same freedoms that we were born with, that we are handing over through silence and compliance. And I believe that this moment now, this bill is the line in the sand. Now, I was a part of the Kill the Bill in Melbourne when Dan Andrews was bringing his pandemic treaty. And even though we lost, one thing we gained from it was a passion that we fought. We were out there. Losing isn't always how would you say it? Isn't always a defeat. The Vietnamese lost every battle they ever had against the French and Americans, but they won both wars. And and I think the fight has to be there. There has to be some of us fighting this, and because it is just absolutely wrong. It is completely wrong. You need freedom of speech, freedom of choice. The government should be there to empty the bins, fix the roads, do a few little dodgy deals, and stay the F out of our lives. This government has lost its mind. It is totally into absolute control. There's cameras everywhere. I live on the road. Everywhere you go, cameras, 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 and people are adapting, trying to adapt to not be fined or not stay out of the cameras. We are being beaten down. And it's time for us, I believe, and this is it. This, to me, should be the line in the stand where Australians say no. And the Liberal Party, well, they look like they're dead. But the Labor Party needs to get uh, a virtual kicking. So they remember once and for all, for at least the next 20 years, you do not try to steal the freedoms from Australian people, because we are not slaves. We are not prisoners. This is no longer a penal colony. This is a democracy. And it's supposed to be a representative democracy where you represent our wants and needs. And I'm online and seeing people in the street. I don't hear anyone calling for hate speech laws, anyone at all, just the Prime Minister.
Yep. And my research today demonstrated that. There's nobody expressing opinions on social media about what a great day it is that we've got hate speech ban. This is a bullying tactic. Very, but the, I mean, I don't want to. I like and respect you too much to continue pursuing a potentially alienating disagreement.
No, we can disagree. I have full respect for you. I just disagree.
Yeah, and I yeah. So yeah, I'm not going to restate my stance, but I think we can continue in genuine disagreement without losing any love or respect for one another.
Sure.
But it's definitely time to kind of to put it down, to let this difficult conversation
it's difficult
sit on the back of the stove and stew a bit. We might revisit it.
Difficult times, I mean, I might be a part of a community that has lost many battles. We lost the Kill the Bill. We've lost battle after battle after battle, and we've got disillusioned. But I still see the 832 flying. I still see people online talking. There's a lot of people who are reaching out to me with ideas and wanting to fight. So I don't think this is over. Dr. Pay, a military historian, and he's been to jail. He was bullied by them in Canberra. He says in these sort of struggles, the best chance we have of winning is we just don't quit. That's it. You don't quit, and eventually you wear them down. But I think to wear them down, you have to, or at least a good section of us, has to fight. I really believe some of us have to be prepared to go to jail for this and become symbolic for that. There's a few of us already in jail, but I believe that's what's going to have to happen. In England, they've got, someone said to me, they can't put us all in jail. Well, they've put 12,000 people in jail in England. So they're
Mhm.
pretty determined to silence us. And yet I still
Yes.
see the English calling out and fighting back. So I think this is a new form of warfare, cultural warfare aimed at the West. And it's a moment in time where every Australian, every adult Australian, especially the men, have to decide, who am I? What do I stand for? And what am I going to do now? Because now is the time uh, to define who you are and what it actually means to be an Australian. That's what I think.
Mm. And it's noble. Uh, the guys that run towards the enemy machine gun position to try and move the battle forward. They're Some people see them as heroes, some people see them as lunatics. Uh, uh,
I don't
yeah,
intend to run into any machine gun fire, but I'm certainly not going to curtail my speech because a man who gets offended by AI bikinis uh, wants me to be silenced or wants me to speak like he wants me to speak. He can go
yeah.
fuck himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I absolutely respect your right to make that decision. What
Cheers.
what I'm what I'm attempting to do in all of these conversations is
Mm-hmm.
to bring a relatively tonight was an exception, unemotional conversation to bear.
Ah, you're a human
Uh,
being.
only when I let my guard down, Michael.
Oh well, I'm very good at getting under people's skin.
um,
It's a gift.
but I
Dark
mean,
gift.
yeah, I'm not going to go back over the same ground, but
Sure.
if the battle needs heroes to be won, then I'll be so grateful that we've got people like you. If the
Oh, it
battle
might not be
needs,
me. It could be
if
anybody.
the well,
There's, yeah.
but if the battle needs cunning tacticians and uh, creative weapon manufacturers, and metaphorically,
Mm-hmm.
then that's what I'm trying to stimulate. But I don't
Mm.
want to lose our brightest and best running towards the machine guns. What I want to do is I want to fight guerrilla warfare, and I want to exhaust the enemy like the Vietnamese did to the Americans,
Mm-hmm.
and almost every other modern war that America's fought in, where the enemy has refused to take them on in the trenches. The
Mm-hmm.
enemy has used creative guerrilla tactics, used the challenging terrain that's available to them, and eventually the bully loses.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Sometimes.
gonna.
I
Well,
think who was in Sri Lanka? They had a resistance group that was eventually eradicated. They'd had it for ages. I'm sorry that I can't remember. Does anyone remember the Sri Lankan resistance? They were finally wiped out. I don't think
yes.
anything's written. I don't believe it. I believe uh, it's yeah. This is, and I'm not saying we will win. I'm flabbergasted that we have so many Labor politicians who think this is a good idea and are bringing it in. I
Yeah.
can't believe we don't have dissent even amongst the Labor politicians. I
Gee.
uh, I am seeing enormous changes in this country on various levels that most Australians I meet do not want or don't
Mhm.
understand it or are just sick of it. And yet, the perfect example is the voice. Australians emphatically said no to the voice. And then in Labor, in Victoria, are bringing it in. And it's costing Victorians, I think, 75 million or billion a year, some extraordinary amount for something
Yeah.
that they actively said in a democracy, in a referendum, we don't want this. The government is clearly no longer serving us because a government that is serving us, where a referendum said no, they go, well, we can't do that because the people said no. Instead, they don't care. They act like the anointed. We know better than you, you rabble. And now they're saying, we're sick of you rabbles noise. We're sick of this. You're disturbing our peace up here. We know where we're going, and you're going to come with us. And if you won't come peacefully, we'll gag you and drag you along. And I think this is where we're at. And I've had people coming up to the bus today. One German guy, he was incredible. Came up and he said he was just exasperated. He could not believe we're seeing this. He says it's happened before. It's right here now, and he can't. He can't believe it. And
Michael, there's
and
two things. The Tamil Tigers just came up in the
Tamil,
chat.
thanks, guys. The Tamils, yeah.
I don't know. I missed who said it, but well done. But,
thanks, man.
Yeah. Now I've lost where you were going with that second point, Michael.
It's just.
I know. No. There's something really important that I want to make a point to you, Michael.
Sure.
You're in an incredibly interesting position. In many ways, you are a lightning rod for the energy that's demonstrated in the echo chamber that we occupy. This wonderful minority of people that hopefully you and I appeal to. But
I don't speak for anybody, though. I don't actually. I'm not garnishing
your
my
comment
opinion
is that you're seeing a groundswell. Your comment is that you're seeing a groundswell.
Only online.
Okay.
Yeah. The freedom community doesn't talk to me much at all. There's I do when I go to town, I meet up with a few of them, handfuls, but it's not like I've got this. I turn up at a town and thousands of people come up to meet me. It's hardly any handful. I think Murray Bridge we had 3 who come up and they're mates. And most of them, like one guy I talked to today, a great friend of mine, Eric, he's not even aware of the hate speech laws because he's got so much going on with his life that he'd been unaware. These are my own thoughts and opinions. And the older I get, I'm really learning how important freedom is and how important freedom of speech is. I believe freedom of speech is a gift from the gods to ward off tyranny. It's why they always want us to hand it over. They want us to hand it over so we disarm ourselves. We got disarmed in Port Arthur, so we can't be violent. We just don't have the resources. So we have to do it peacefully. And one of the most peaceful ways to do it is to be outspoken. And they realize that, and that's why they want to silence us. And it's going to be much harder once we're silenced to achieve anything. And that's why I think we have to fight tooth and nail to hold on to this. And we can't fight. I don't see any violence. I mean, no one's cutting down cameras in Australia, as far as I know. Everything's been left alone. So at the moment, it's just discourse, their propaganda versus our propaganda. And that's why, I mean, Albanese wants X gone. Why does he want X gone? Because all the other platforms censor us at will. The government tells them to censor us, they do. X, it seems to be the only platform where they go, no, we're going to post what we want. So it seems to be some freedom there.
And one of the things that occupies my mind a lot is why Donald Trump's America hasn't stepped into places like the UK and Australia with these draconian limitations on free speech. One of the things that stops bullies is the bigger bully phenomenon. We were talking about that an hour or so ago, where if you're monstering me for my lunch money, and I've got an older brother 2 years ahead of us in school, then there's a chance that my older brother will step in and smack you in the face and say, "Leave my brother alone." Now, that's the sort of behaviour that I must admit I expected of Donald Trump. I think he sees himself as a rescuer, and I just can't work out why all he's done is try to humiliate Keir Starmer. He hasn't tried to step on him in any way.
Well, it's an ally, I guess. You know, I don't know how it works up in their level. I'll never be there. But I actually don't want Trump to do anything. I think this is a moment. Australia has never had a civil war, which the Americans had a war of independence. and we've never had a war of independence. I think
Mhm.
this is that war. And I think if we win it, if we're victorious on this battleground, even just through discourse, just through not complying, then upon that victory, we can build a better Australia where we
But we
have a
need,
pride
yeah,
in ourselves and we can get our
but we need
men
to be
with their
we
chin in
need to
the
be
air.
creative in the way we fight that guerrilla war. We can't do it by having 1 million people descend on Canberra. They practiced with those dreadful weapons on us when 1 million people did go to Canberra last
Yeah, but
time.
we did,
And look at
we were
and look at the
we did
weapons. Hang on, let me finish the sentence, Michael. Look
sure.
at the look at the weaponry they just unfolded in securing Maduro from Venezuela. Uh, I I don't want to have a civil war where we have nothing but our words and the enemy has M15 carbines and energy weapons.
Mm. In
We've got to be
do you know how
creative.
they
We've got
won
to
in
find a way
Romania?
to.
Do you know how
Sorry.
what happened? Do you know the moment when Romania was having its revolution? Do you know the moment in that revolution where they won?
No.
I heard this from two or three Romanians. It was the moment when the police could no longer stomach killing their own people,
Oh
and they laid
wow.
down their weapons and they joined
Wow.
the protesters. And that's
And you
happening
really
in
think
Iran.
Australian police are going to do that
Yeah.
after what they did during COVID?
Yeah, I don't believe all of them did it. I believe a small what I think happened early on in COVID is we were innocent. We are a good people and
Yep.
we are not used to draconian methods. Dan Andrews had us at a disadvantage. I
Yep.
believe it was like a cultural Pearl Harbor, but no enemy gets two Pearl Harbors. When we went to Canberra, we thought we would be heard and respected. We did not even conceive that our own government would use such weapons against us as they did. And they did. I've documented the people who've been injured. And the government's never admitted it. Why should they? Because they're at war and we're the enemy.
Yep.
There's but this time uh we wouldn't be as innocent. I don't know what we have to do to win this. I can only speak for myself as a human being alone. I actually often don't feel like I'm a part of a great movement. I just feel I'm alone and people listen and follow me. Fantastic, but that's all I have to do. I'm an old guy. I got hardly any money. I got this old bus. And I've got a great girl, and even everything we do is just on a $250 Android phone. It's not like we're yeah well endowed with anything. But to me, my choice is that this has to be fought now. And I think if enough people actually go, yep, I'm doing that, and they get to the battleground, however that means, other people will join. And if they join by following those who are doing it, however they're doing it, even if it means going to jail, uh, I think bit by bit, uh, the thing will sway in our favor. But if we just
Mm.
go, okay, well, there's nothing we can do, and they bring this in, then I think further darker draconian methods will come in, and it's going to be very harder to stop those. Much harder, maybe even impossible. The social credit score system, where you can't get food, you can't get fuel, that how do you escape that? We are now the generation who has a choice. Do we want our children and our grandchildren to be free or not? That's our choice. And if we decide, no, we want them to be free, then we have to pay the price now. And we can fight this fight without bullets. They won't kill us. We're not there yet. We can fight it peacefully and we can fight it
Creatively.
humanitarianly, creatively. We
Creatively.
can do it.
Please,
We can
creatively.
do it, but no, we can do it now. We are fighting for the right to be a human being. And to be a human being, the one right you have is the right to be yourself. And you cannot be yourself unless you're free. And freedom of speech is the core of that. And that's the gift we give our kids. You're here. You've never existed in the history before. I want you to be the best version of you, as you said at the start of the show. And you're basically a light bulb. You glow because of who you are. And if we take away that right now by giving up freedom of speech, those children will not have that right. They will be Anne Franks living in the attic of their soul. And that's the truth as I see it.
Yeah.
This is how how awful this is. It's gone too far. This should be the hill that we fight upon. The rats of Tobruk. I believe this is it now. And I don't even believe it's pushed by our government. I believe it's pushed by people above them and stuff like this because
Yep.
they're just doing it. And I think they're having a last ditch effort to see if they can do it. They're doing it in Canada, they're doing it in New Zealand, Ireland, a lot of Europe, and a lot of places they're failing. And they should fail here because it will be how can we show our faces around the world if all we showed was with a little bit of argy-bargy, we all kowtowed because
Yep.
we
And
didn't want
Michael, I suspect that we've predominantly been in furious agreement tonight. I think the only point of disagreement has been that I'm not able to even imagine the kind of weaponry that we can create that is not the dreadful weaponry of our enemy, but it's clever weaponry of our own that they won't even know that we've created, and they won't have a defense for it. That's how we win. We can't use their weapons to beat them.
No, I agree. Well, we don't have their weapons. I agree, and I don't want to fight with weapons. But you can fight with one weapon you have.
Tactics, strategies.
One weapon we have. One weapon we have. One beautiful weapon we have, and that's our existence. And what are you going to do with your existence? Because they can beat it out of you, they can kill you, but how you face death, you can either choose to live on your knees or die on your feet. And if you choose to die on your feet, there's only so many they can do before the people that are oppressing us will go, I can't stomach this anymore. These are my brothers and sisters. And so they've got 12,000 people in jail in England. They're going to keep going, but they're going to run out of jails. And bit by bit, I think people will go, this is incredible. This is insane. But we are going to have to get bloodied in a way. And I don't mean bloodied physically, but I mean like in COVID, we're going to have to take some hits. But it's necessary because we will take hits that are not physical, that are not real bullets. But if we don't take them, then our grandkids will be facing real bullets. And history teaches us that.
Yep. There you go. What an interesting conversation tonight, Michael.
We forgot the marshmallows.
Yeah. Well, yeah, yes, I don't know how to summarize what we've talked about tonight.
Well, Robin is saying here, truth and speech are our weapons. Truth, speech, courage, determination, resilience, they're our weapons too. And deciding you're here for one lifetime, what you want to be. And I'm telling you, Lindsay, this is what I personally think of you, and I could be wrong. I hear what you're saying about adapting, and I totally understand it. But I think if they arrest me and put me in jail and they tell you, Lindsay, you got to say nothing. You get online and say anything. You mention Michael's name. You say this is wrong online somewhere, and we'll come after you. I think for a bit you'll worry about it. You'll consider adapting. But I think inside you, you'll go, no. And I think you'd get online and say, the arrest of Michael is wrong.
Okay.
And that's how
I agree with almost everything you've said there, but there is a point of distinction that I'll make. One of the best series that I've ever seen was the original UK version of House of Cards. And it was about a truly evil politician. Oh, yeah. And it was then Americanized, and Kevin Spacey played the evil politician. But this guy, the only line that I remember from this dreadful man was he was in the Houses of Parliament, and he made a point by saying, the opposition might say X, Y, and Z. People in the high street might say X, Y, and Z. They might say X, Y, and Z, but I couldn't possibly. So that's creative use of language. So I agree in general terms that if Michael ends up incarcerated and Lindsay's told not to talk about it, Lindsay will actively work on a creative way to say something along the lines of, well, everyone watching knows that I would like to talk about a man that I'm not allowed to talk about, a man who's in prison. And
Fair enough.
I've been forbidden to talk about him, so I'm not going to talk about him. Okay, I'm not going to say another word about Michael Gray Griffith. I'm not going to comment on whether I think his jailing is fair and reasonable. I'm not even going to talk about whether I miss him or not, and whether I'll do everything I can to try and get him released. I'm not going to say any of that stuff, guys. I'm going to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff. So now let's talk about the reasons why a person might be put in prison just for speaking their honest truth. And I'm not talking about Michael Gray Griffith here. I've been told I'm not allowed to talk about Michael Gray Griffith. Now, and I've just made that up on the spur of the moment. But I promise you, Michael, and you might be really disappointed in me, I value the well-being of the woman I love more than I value the well-being of both Michael Gray Griffith and Lindsay Spencer Matthews. So if you end up incarcerated for speaking your truth, I will not thumb my nose to the powers that be. I won't say, hi guys, I'm back on Cafe Lockdown and Michael's not here because he's in fucking jail and these assholes have told me that they'll put me in jail if I talk about him so they can fuck off. I'm going to talk about Michael till the cows come home because they can't solve. I'm not going to do that, Michael, and I hope that doesn't disappoint you too much. But I hope I'll be able to find a...
disappoint me. It doesn't disappoint me because it hasn't happened yet. Unfortunately, when it comes to true acts of courage, the only test is when you're in the point where you have to be courageous or not. And none of us really know how we're going to be until we're at that moment. And that's the truth. That's something I've learned in this battle. Lindsay, I'm going to call it a night. It's been an interesting night. It's I hope we're still friends. I'm still friends. But I think it's good to have these conversations.
I so much value the fact that we've got the ability to even strongly have a disagreement and not lose any real respect for each other. I don't think either of us has.
I totally understand your point of view. Hey, I don't want to be away from Cal. She goes into Bunnings. I miss her, so I don't even want to get away from Cal. But this is an incredible time in history where your actions could actually matter, and so that's it. And I think that's what we're sent here to do, to decide, because ultimately what we do when confronted with this, the choices we make, free choices. We will decide whether we tackle them or whether we comply. But I think
whether we adapt.
But I think sadly, the silences, if we do comply, and the silence of our nation will be full of the ghosts of the Australians yet to be born, going, why did you just enslave us all? What in your life was so worthy for you that you would enslave all of us? Because your forefathers didn't enslave you.
Yes, I think there's a lot of truth in that, Michael. A lot of truth.
Maybe. Anyway, good night. We're going to go out with the lucky country. Awesome. And actually, I'm going out with the lucky country. Actually, I'll go out with Epic, because the thing I love about this is that we didn't come to start a war. We came to show you that we were still your mates and it was not too late. And this is what I've seen the freedom movement. I've seen the freedom movement be a beautiful thing the whole time. I haven't seen that much violence, a bit of anger, but not. But I think we're a beautiful community. But we've had some challenges. And once again, to Wade, mate, I really wish you the best. It's a terrible thing to have a stroke, so good luck. And I hope Belinda stays by your side and you persevere and get through. Take care, brother. This is Epic. Lindsay, I love you. Thanks for a raucous night. Mate. And see you later. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
We came down from Darwin with the dust in our veins. We drove across the Nullarbor, driven by change. There were convoys from Melbourne and busloads from Cairns, where we camped at Wodonga and fueled up at Pheasant's Nest. And there were tears of hope singing through our liberated eyes as we scrawled freedom forever across our government's lives, as we scrawled freedom forever across all our government's lives. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that we were still your mates. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that it was not too late. But our country had gone crazy, corrupted by fear. And before us the long path was already flooded with tears. Yet in epic we were dancing, for we knew what we'd done. Together we'd made the birth of all our freedoms. And this new cry for liberty were the smiles in our hugs, as the cops haunted our periphery like tyranny's new thugs. But for one night in Canberra we knew we were aglow, and our luminance was shining like a beacon of hope. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that we were still your mates. And we didn't come to start a war, and we didn't come to hate. Instead we came to remind you that it was not too late. So never forget how, by just being authentic, we drew a deep line in their cold sand, from a showground called epic. So never forget how, by leading the way, we wrote a fresh song of freedom that you can still sing today. So sing like you've never sung before. Sing now like your soul's found its wings. Sing out like an echo through our time, until our grandchildren are born humming our lines. Until our grandchildren are born in the freedom's warm and glorious light. Until our grandchildren are born in the freedom's warm and glorious light.